Listen to Donald Trump there have very nice words to say about Britain, about the King. No better friends than the UK. I don't know, some Canadians used to think that maybe we were their closest friend, but maybe not these days. How should Canadians feel about seeing our head of state, the King of Canada, glad-handing and being celebrated by a president who's threatened to take our country?
It's kind of interesting how there's sort of two kinds of incoherence coinciding here. You have on the one hand Prince Charles, who's trained from birth to speak without saying anything, like nothing he says can really be meaningful, and then you have Donald Trump, who blathers on and on at the least occasion and really isn't very significant. And it's very unclear what's significant and what's not significant in what he says, and sort of they're sort of ramming up against each other, these two kinds of incomprehension. I think the Canadian people will understand exactly what to take from this, which is nothing. There's not. Trump's speech was a very odd kind of blood and soil connection with England. It was a talk about this weird kind of like primal genetic connection, which of course is not really it's not true of England or America, that they're blood and soil nations that would be deserving of that kind of speech.
Interesting. Okay, so the King is not supposed to take political stances, but is this very act of visiting the U.S. at this time not inherently political? And we should be pointed out, he doesn't just go there because he feels like going there. It's Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, who the American president has called weak, has insulted, has said he's no Winston Churchill, on and on and on. What do you make of that?
Well, I think we all realize that Donald Trump is a reality television president. What he feels most comfortable in is the entertainment industry. That is what he is a product of. He is turning American politics into part of the entertainment industry. And of course, no one has ever been better at that particular kind of symbolic politics than the English royal family. So I think there's sort of, it's an attempt to assuage Trump and sort of distract him with a little bit of glitter, and which he is incredibly easily distracted by. But it's certainly nothing more than symbolic. Especially when you're dealing with someone who will not remember that this happened in a week, and for whom object permanence is not really a feature of his intellectual life. Nonetheless, I think it could help in the relationships between the countries that Charles is the king of, and the United States, but probably only for this week. I really don't think it'll amount to much more than that.
Because Trump played up, as we mentioned, the historic friendship between the U.S. and the U.K. in that speech earlier today. But this visit is happening when tensions between the U.K. and the U.S. are heightened over the war in Iran. Do you think there is a chance this visit could smooth things over? Or I think I'm starting to get where you're coming from. You think he'll forget about it tomorrow or a couple days from now?
I think, people try to think through Trump as a rational actor, and they try to think through him as a self-interested actor. And this is comforting for us because it makes us feel that we're dealing with someone who can be predicted. But the truth is, all of those bonds of friendship, like Denmark was a very good friend to the United States during the Iraq War and the Afghan War. He threatened Greenland nonetheless. This is not someone who has a sense of honor or any sense of real continuity. And so, you don't make contracts with people like that, and you certainly don't expect them to, remember you and to remember ties of friendship. That's just not in the Trump playbook.
We heard from Mark Carney yesterday in his interview with our chief correspondent, Adrienne Arsenault. She was, now we're getting to the Canada-U.S. relationship more specifically, saying that Canada won't be chasing a small deal with the U.S. Is patience, do you think, the right strategy with Trump when he can be so volatile on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I think the key thing to recognize is that you cannot make a contract with someone who will not honor it, right? And there's absolutely no sense whatsoever that the United States or certainly Donald Trump or his administration will honor any contract. So he could tear it up the next day after all the work that went into it. So, I think that is the operational premise. When the Europeans and the Brits made these deals with the U.S., they were very kind of shallow deals, and they were not integral to these economies, and they just kind of wanted to put it behind them. For us, where it really matters a lot more, it's certainly worth remembering that we intend to honor our agreements, and they don't. And so we should not make a deal with if they for some kind of concession that will emerge in the future, because it won't. We just have to deal with them as, you don't make a contract with a baby, because babies don't know what the future is. And I think that's what America is. It doesn't really have a future at the moment.
Stephen, thank you. Stephen Marsh joining us from Toronto.
Always a pleasure, Andrew.